There is a kind of confidence that announces itself before it enters the room. It speaks loudly, moves dramatically, and constantly searches for witnesses. It tells you how powerful it is, how successful it will become, and how little it cares about the opinions of others. Yet, beneath the performance, there is often a hidden need. It needs to be noticed. It needs to be believed. It needs the room to agree. Without attention, it begins to weaken. Without praise, it becomes defensive. Without an audience, it does not know who it is. But there is another kind of confidence. It does not arrive with noise. It does not demand recognition. It does not explain itself to everyone. It meets. It is quiet, grounded, and almost impossible to imitate for long. You recognize it not through what a person claims, but through what they no longer need to prove. They do not need to dominate every conversation. They do not need to respond to every insult. They do not need to advertise every plan, display every achievement, or convince strangers that they are important. Their calm is not an act. Their silence is not emptiness. Something solid has been built within them. And because of that inner foundation, they can move through the world without constantly asking the world to confirm their value. This is the quiet confidence nobody can fake, because it is not created by appearance. It is created by character. Most people think confidence begins when you become impressive enough. They imagine that one day they will earn enough money, improve their appearance, achieve enough success, or receive enough admiration to finally feel secure. They tell themselves that confidence is waiting at the end of accomplishment. When they reach a certain level, they believe doubt will disappear. But this rarely happens. A person can achieve more and become even more afraid of losing what they have gained. They can receive praise and become dependent on praise. They can build an image and then spend their life protecting it. External achievement can strengthen confidence when it is connected to discipline and honest effort. But achievement alone cannot create inner stability. If your worth depends entirely on being admired, every room becomes a test. Every successful person becomes a threat. Every criticism becomes an attack. Every failure becomes evidence that you were never enough. You may appear confident, but internally, you are negotiating with fear. Quiet confidence begins somewhere else. It begins when you stop asking, "How do I appear?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" The first question makes you perform. The second makes you practice. Appearance is managed in public. Character is formed in private. Appearance is concerned with applause. Character is concerned with alignment. When your actions begin to align with your values, something changes inside you. You trust yourself a little more, not because you believe you are perfect, but because you know you are becoming dependable. You said you would wake up and do the work, and you did. You said you would tell the truth, even when lying would be easier, and you did. You said you would walk away from what damaged your peace, and after many difficult attempts, you finally did. These moments may seem small, but they form the foundation of self-respect. Quiet confidence is self-respect, made visible through behavior. You cannot fake self-respect for long. You may imitate the posture, the vocabulary, or the expression of someone who seems secure. You can speak slowly, dress carefully, and memorize impressive statements. But pressure eventually reveals what is real. When someone disagrees with you, do you become curious? Or do you become hostile? When another person succeeds, can you appreciate them? Or must you reduce their achievement? When you make a mistake, can you admit it? Or must you protect your image at any cost? When you are ignored, do you remain steady? Or do you begin performing more aggressively? Confidence is not tested when everyone agrees with you. It is tested when you are questioned, overlooked, rejected, or proven wrong. The insecure person sees disagreement as disrespect. The quietly confident person understands that another mind is allowed to reach another conclusion. They can listen without collapsing. They can consider criticism without surrendering their identity. They can say, "You may be right," without feeling humiliated. They can also say, "I have considered your perspective, and I still disagree," without anger. This balance is rare because it requires humility and strength at the same time. Humility allows you to learn. Strength allows you to remain yourself. Without humility, confidence becomes arrogance. Without strength, humility becomes submission. Quiet confidence holds both. The Stoics understood that a person becomes free when they stop placing their inner condition in the hands of external judgment. Epictetus taught that some things belong to us, while others do not. Our judgments, intentions, and actions belong to us. Reputation, applause, and the opinions of other people do not. Yet many people reverse this order. They neglect their character while obsessing over how their character is perceived. They spend more time appearing disciplined than practicing discipline. They want to look wise without enduring the discomfort of learning. They want to seem strong without confronting their weaknesses. They want the reputation of courage without taking a difficult step. Quiet confidence does not reverse reality in this way. It returns attention to what can actually be governed. Instead of asking, "Do they respect me?" it asks, "Am I behaving in a respectable way?" Instead of asking, "Do they believe in me?" it asks, "Have I given myself evidence that I can be trusted?" Instead of asking, "Do I look successful?" it asks, "Am I doing meaningful work with patience and integrity?" These questions are less exciting because they do not provide instant validation, but they produce something far more valuable. They create an identity that does not disappear when the room changes. A quietly confident person does not need to be the most impressive person in every room. This is one of the clearest signs. They can enter a space where others know more, have achieved more, or possess greater skill, and remain open rather than threatened. They do not need to invent stories, exaggerate experiences, or turn every conversation toward themselves. They can ask questions. They can say, "I do not know." They can admire without comparing. This is possible because another person's strength does not automatically become evidence of their weakness. Insecurity experiences life as a ranking system. Someone must be above, and someone must be below. If another person is praised, the insecure mind feels forgotten. If someone speaks intelligently, it feels exposed. If someone has confidence, it feels challenged. This creates a life of constant measurement. You compare appearances, careers, relationships, talents, and timelines. Even when you are doing well, you cannot rest, because someone will always seem further ahead. Quiet confidence leaves the ranking system. It understands that comparison may provide information, but it cannot provide identity. You can learn from another person without becoming them. You can admire their path without insulting your own. You can recognize your weaknesses without concluding that you are worthless. You can be a beginner and still possess dignity. This is difficult. In a culture that constantly invites comparison, every screen appears to show someone more successful, attractive, productive, or admired, but you are rarely seeing their full life. You are seeing a selected image, a finished result, or a public moment. Comparing your private uncertainty with another person's public presentation creates a game you cannot win. The quietly confident person returns to their own work. They measure progress against their former self. Are they more disciplined than before? More honest? More emotionally stable? Better able to keep their promises? More willing to face reality? These measurements produce growth because they are connected to action. The question is no longer, am I ahead of everyone? The question becomes, am I moving in the right direction? Direction matters more than performance. A person may move slowly and still build something real. Another may move quickly while building a life they do not respect. Quiet confidence is patient enough to choose direction over display. It can work without immediate applause. It can remain consistent while results are still invisible. It understands that the strongest foundations are built beneath the surface, where nobody is watching. Think of a tree during winter. From the outside, it may appear inactive. There are no leaves, flowers, or visible signs of growth. Yet beneath the soil, the roots remain alive. They continue holding the ground. They prepare for a season that has not yet arrived. Quiet confidence has this quality. It does not panic when growth is invisible. It does not dig up its own roots every day to ask whether progress is happening. It remains committed to the process. This is why quietly confident people often speak less about what they are going to do. They have learned that announcing a goal can create the emotional reward of progress before progress has occurred. The applause for an intention may temporarily satisfy the need that should have been satisfied by action, so they protect the early stages of their work. They do not hide from accountability, but they are careful about exposing fragile ambitions to unnecessary opinion. They understand that some goals need silence, repetition, and time. The insecure person wants immediate recognition. They speak about the new habit on the first day. They describe the future result before completing the first difficult week. They tell everyone about the plan because the identity of becoming successful feels easier than the labor required for success. When the excitement disappears, so does the effort. Quiet confidence is different. It is less interested in the feeling of beginning and more committed to the discipline of continuing. It wakes up when motivation is absent. It practices when no one is impressed. It returns after failure. It understands that consistency is not glamorous. Much of real growth is repetitive. The same exercises, the same uncomfortable conversations, the same decision to focus when distraction is easier, the same refusal to abandon the process because results are slow. Over time, this repetition creates evidence, and confidence built from evidence does not need exaggeration. This is an important distinction. Quiet confidence is not blind belief. It does not repeat, "I can do anything," while refusing to prepare. It says, "I may not know everything, but I can learn. I may not control the outcome, but I can control my effort. I have faced difficulty before, and I can face this one step at a time." This confidence is grounded. It does not deny risk. It does not promise perfection. It trusts the ability to respond. The strongest person in a difficult situation is rarely the one claiming that nothing can go wrong. That is often denial disguised as courage. The strongest person can look directly at what may go wrong without becoming paralyzed. They prepare where preparation is possible. They accept uncertainty where control ends. They do not need to pretend that they are fearless. Their confidence comes from knowing that fear does not have to make the decision. This is why quiet confidence often feels calm. It does not rush to prove itself. It can pause. It can breathe. It can allow a moment of uncertainty without filling it with noise. In conversation, it does not fear silence. The insecure person often speaks quickly because silence feels like judgment. They explain, interrupt, or tell unnecessary stories to control how they are perceived. But the quietly confident person does not believe every pause must be repaired. They can think before answering. They can let another person finish. They understand that a slower response is not a weaker response. When challenged, they do not immediately raise their voice. They know volume does not create truth. When insulted, they do not always retaliate. They know that reacting to every provocation places their emotional control in the hands of anyone capable of provoking them. When misunderstood, they explain when explanation can create clarity. But they do not chase every false opinion. They know that some people are not searching for truth. They are searching for a reaction. The need to respond to every insult often comes from a fragile identity. If someone calls you weak and you know your strength only through their approval, the accusation feels dangerous. You must defeat it immediately. But if you have faced your own fear, kept your promises, and endured difficulties that the speaker knows nothing about, their words cannot rewrite your history. You may dislike the insult, but you do not need to become its servant. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that another person's opinion exists within their own mind. It cannot damage your character unless you allow it to guide your behavior. This does not mean reputation is meaningless or that harmful lies should never be corrected. It means that your first responsibility is not controlling the speaker. It is controlling your response. You can defend yourself without losing yourself. You can speak firmly without becoming cruel. You can walk away without feeling defeated. Quiet confidence knows that walking away is sometimes power. Insecure pride believes every battle must be accepted. Someone challenges you, so you must respond. Someone disrespects you, so you must demonstrate dominance. Someone doubts you, so you must reveal your plans and achievements. But not every invitation deserves acceptance. Some arguments have no reward. Some people have no intention of listening. Some battles consume the energy you need for your actual life. A quietly confident person asks, "Does this deserve my attention?" This question protects them from countless distractions. They know attention is not unlimited. Whatever receives attention receives a piece of life. To spend hours arguing with someone committed to misunderstanding you is to give away time that could have been used to build, learn, recover, or connect with someone who values honest dialogue. This selective use of energy may look like indifference to people who confuse reaction with strength. They may say you do not care because you refuse to participate in drama. They may call you passive because you do not answer immediately. But calm restraint is not passivity. It is the ability to choose your response rather than having it chosen for you. Anyone can be controlled through emotion if they must respond to every stimulus. Praise makes them expand. Criticism makes them collapse. Attention makes them feel valuable. Silence makes them feel invisible. Quiet confidence breaks this pattern. It appreciates praise without depending on it. It considers criticism without becoming defined by it. It enjoys attention without demanding it. It can be unseen without feeling non-existent. This is where solitude becomes important. Many people avoid being alone because silence removes distraction. Without the reactions of others, they are forced to encounter their own thoughts. They may discover how much of their identity depends on being observed. They do not know what they enjoy, unless it can be shared. They do not know what they believe until someone else approves. They do not know whether a day was meaningful unless it looked impressive from the outside. Quiet confidence is strengthened in solitude because solitude teaches you to exist without performance. You learn to do something because it matters to you. You read without announcing what you are reading. You work without displaying every step. You walk without needing to document the walk. You begin asking what brings clarity, meaning, and self-respect, rather than what will receive the strongest reaction. This does not mean withdrawing from people. Healthy confidence supports healthy connection. When you are no longer desperate for validation, relationships become more honest. You stop using people as mirrors. You do not need them to constantly reflect an attractive version of yourself. You can listen to their problems without turning the conversation back toward your own. You can celebrate them without secretly asking whether their success reduces your importance. Quiet confidence is generous because it does not experience every interaction as competition. It can give credit. It can admit when another person had the better idea. It can apologize without adding an excuse. It can thank someone for teaching it something. These actions are difficult for insecure pride because they appear to lower status, but the quietly confident person does not measure dignity through constant superiority. An apology is one of the clearest tests. A fragile ego experiences an apology as defeat. It says, "If I admit I was wrong, they will think less of me." So it explains, blames, or changes the subject. It may say the right words while quietly defending the behavior, but quiet confidence can say, "I was wrong. I should have handled that differently." It does not collapse into shame, because one mistake does not destroy its entire identity. It can separate the statement, "I did something wrong," from the statement, "I am permanently worthless." This ability makes growth possible. If every mistake threatens your worth, you will hide from reality. You will protect the image instead of correcting the behavior. But if your worth is grounded in the willingness to live honestly, then admitting a mistake strengthens rather than weakens you. You become more trustworthy because people no longer have to fight through your defenses before truth can appear. Quiet confidence is honest about weakness. It does not expose every private struggle to everyone, but it does not need to pretend that struggle is absent. It can ask for help. It can say, "I am still learning." It can enter a room without being the expert. This is different from low confidence. Low confidence believes weakness is identity. Quiet confidence sees weakness as information. It asks what must be practiced, understood, or changed. Imagine someone learning a difficult skill. The insecure person wants to look naturally talented. When they struggle, they feel embarrassed. They avoid questions because questions might reveal ignorance. They may quit before others can see them fail. The quietly confident person accepts the temporary awkwardness of learning. They understand that competence is built through imperfect attempts. They are willing to look inexperienced because they care more about becoming capable than appearing capable. This willingness is powerful. Many lives remain small because people are protecting an image. They do not begin the project because the early work may be unimpressive. They do not enter the room because others may know more. They do not speak because their first attempt may be uncertain. They would rather preserve the appearance of potential than risk discovering the reality of effort. Quiet confidence gives you permission to begin badly. It says, I am not required to be excellent on the first day. I am required to be present, honest, and willing to improve. This mindset creates experience. Experience creates skill. Skill creates genuine confidence. The process cannot be replaced by positive language alone. You cannot speak yourself into the confidence that only practice can provide. You can encourage yourself, and encouragement matters. But eventually, you must act. Every time you face something you once avoided, your identity changes. You discover that fear can be present without becoming a wall. You discover that embarrassment can be survived. You discover that failure provides information rather than a final sentence. The quietly confident person has often failed many times. Their calm does not come from a perfect history. It comes from surviving an imperfect one. They have been rejected and continued. They have made mistakes and repaired them. They have been underestimated, misunderstood, and sometimes embarrassed. Each experience removed an illusion. They stopped believing they needed universal approval. They stopped believing one failure could define an entire life. They stopped believing discomfort was proof that they should retreat. This is why some of the calmest people are those who have faced themselves honestly. They know what they are capable of, but they also know where they are weak. They do not need to exaggerate either side. They do not describe themselves as invincible because they have seen their own limits. They do not describe themselves as powerless because they have seen themselves endure. Self-knowledge removes performance. When you know your values, you do not need every environment to define them. When you know your abilities, you can use them without constantly advertising them. When you know your limitations, you can prepare, learn, or ask for assistance without shame. The more accurately you know yourself, the less energy you spend creating an image for others. However, self-knowledge requires uncomfortable observation. You must notice your motives. Why are you speaking? Are you contributing something useful or trying to seem intelligent? Why are you sharing the achievement? Are you celebrating honestly or demanding admiration? Why are you criticizing someone? Are you protecting a principle or reducing them so you can feel taller? These questions can be painful, but they are freeing. You cannot build quiet confidence while secretly depending on constant comparison. You cannot become grounded while refusing to see the ways insecurity guides your behavior. Awareness is the beginning. You notice the urge to perform without immediately obeying it. You notice the need to mention your success, correct a small misunderstanding, or prove that you belong. Then you pause. You do not need to judge yourself harshly. Insecurity is human. Everyone wants recognition to some degree. Everyone feels threatened, overlooked, or uncertain at times. Quiet confidence is not the total absence of these feelings. It is the ability to experience them without allowing them to control your character. Perhaps someone else receives the praise you hope to receive. You feel disappointment. Quiet confidence does not pretend the feeling is absent. It observes it. Then it asks, can I still behave generously? Perhaps someone questions your ability. You feel anger. Quiet confidence asks, is there useful information here? Or is this merely an opinion? Perhaps you enter a room and feel inferior. Quiet confidence asks, Can I remain curious instead of performing? This is emotional discipline. You cannot always control the first feeling, but you can train the second response. Over time, the second response becomes more natural. The pause becomes longer. The reaction becomes less extreme. Your inner world becomes more stable because every emotion no longer receives authority. Boundaries are another expression of quiet confidence. A person who respects themselves can say no without creating a courtroom defense. They understand that kindness does not require constant availability. They can care about someone and still protect their time. They can listen to disappointment without immediately surrendering. Their no may be gentle, but it remains clear. The insecure person often fears that boundaries will cause rejection, so they agree to things they do not want. Then feel resentment. They remain silent, hoping others will somehow recognize their hidden limits. Later, they withdraw or explode. Quiet confidence communicates earlier. It would rather face the temporary discomfort of honesty than the long-term damage of self-betrayal. This does not mean becoming cold or refusing compromise. Strong boundaries are not walls against all connection. They are agreements about what you will participate in and how you expect to be treated. Quiet confidence can negotiate when negotiation is healthy. It can change its mind when new information appears, but it does not abandon a clear principle simply because someone applies emotional pressure. When people are accustomed to your lack of boundaries, your confidence may initially look selfish. They may say you have changed. They may miss the version of you who always adjusted, apologized, and remained available. This is where quiet confidence is tested. Can you allow someone to be disappointed without interpreting their disappointment as proof that you are wrong? Another person's discomfort is not always evidence of your cruelty. Sometimes it is evidence that an old pattern has ended. You remain respectful. You examine yourself honestly, but you do not reopen every decision merely because someone preferred the previous arrangement. Quiet confidence also knows when to leave. It does not stay in every environment to prove endurance. People sometimes confuse tolerance with strength. They remain in disrespectful situations because leaving feels like defeat. They continue arguments, relationships, or commitments that require constant self-abandonment. They tell themselves that strong people can handle anything. But strength is not measured by how long you can remain where your values are being destroyed. Sometimes the strongest act is departure. Quiet confidence does not always announce the departure dramatically. It does not need revenge. It does not need everyone to understand. It recognizes that peace is not found through winning every struggle. Sometimes peace begins when you stop returning to the same struggle. This is difficult because leaving may produce misunderstanding. People may create stories about your motives. They may call you weak, disloyal, or arrogant. The need to correct every story can pull you back into the same pattern. Quiet confidence explains what is necessary to the people who deserve honest communication. Then, it accepts that not every interpretation can be controlled. You cannot manage the version of you that exists inside every other mind. Some will see your silence as pride. Some will see your kindness as weakness. Some will interpret discipline as obsession and boundaries as rejection. If you build your life around preventing misunderstanding, you will eventually become a collection of performances. The quietly confident person chooses integrity over universal approval. Integrity means that your actions, values, and words are not constantly fighting each other. You may still make mistakes, but you are no longer living an entire life against yourself. You do not say yes while secretly meaning no. You do not agree merely to remain accepted. You do not pretend to believe something because disagreement might cost status. There is a price for this. Authenticity may change relationships. It may reduce invitations. It may make certain people uncomfortable, but there is also a price for performance. The price is internal division. You are praised for a version of yourself that does not feel real. People may love the role, but you remain unsure whether they would respect the person beneath it. Quiet confidence accepts the risk of being known. It does not reveal everything to everyone, but what it reveals is true. It would rather be respected by a few for what it genuinely is than admired by many for an image it cannot maintain. This authenticity produces a different kind of presence. You feel it when someone is comfortable without being careless. They do not rush to fill space. They do not seek permission with every sentence. They can hold eye contact without trying to intimidate. They listen because they are not using the entire conversation to plan their next performance. Their energy is not demanding. It is settled. People often trust this presence because it feels consistent. There is no large distance between the person's public image and private conduct. They do not speak endlessly about loyalty while betraying confidence. They do not preach discipline while refusing responsibility. They do not display kindness only when witnesses are present. Their values continue operating when praise disappears. Consistency is difficult to fake because performance is exhausting. Eventually, a person becomes tired, pressured, or unnoticed, and the hidden character emerges. This is why quiet confidence cannot be manufactured through posture alone. It must be supported by daily conduct. Ask yourself what remains when nobody is watching. Do you still keep the promise? Do you still complete the work? Do you still speak respectfully about the person who left the room? Do you still act according to the principle when violating it would be convenient? These private choices become public energy. Even when people do not know the details, they often sense the difference between someone who is acting and someone who is aligned. This does not require becoming serious all the time. Quiet confidence can laugh at itself. In fact, the ability to laugh at your own harmless mistakes often reveals security. The insecure person treats every imperfect moment as a threat to status. The quietly confident person knows that dignity can survive awkwardness. They do not need to pretend that every story makes them look powerful. Humor becomes healthier when it is not used to hide self-hatred or humiliate others. You can acknowledge your mistakes without turning yourself into an enemy. You can be light without becoming careless. You can enjoy being human without demanding perfection. Perfectionism often looks like high confidence, but beneath it lies fear. The perfectionist may work relentlessly, yet the effort is driven by the belief that any flaw will expose them as inadequate. They cannot enjoy achievement because attention immediately moves to what is missing. They delay sharing work because it may be judged. They avoid new experiences because they may not perform well. Quiet confidence replaces perfection with responsibility. It says, I will prepare carefully. I will give honest effort. I will improve what can be improved. Then I will allow the result to exist. It understands that complete control is impossible. Someone may dislike the work. A mistake may remain. The outcome may not match the effort. But the quietly confident person can separate the value of the process from the unpredictability of the response. This is pure Stoic discipline. Focus on the quality of your action. Then release what does not belong to you. You can prepare the speech, but you cannot control every listener. You can create the work, but you cannot command applause. You can love someone honestly, but you cannot force them to stay. You can behave with integrity, but you cannot guarantee that everyone will interpret you fairly. When you accept this, the nervous need to control perception begins to weaken. You still care. You still learn from feedback, but you no longer place your entire worth in the final outcome. This makes courageous action possible. Courage and quiet confidence are closely connected. Courage is not loud. It often looks like an ordinary person doing something uncomfortable without an audience, sending the application, beginning again after rejection, admitting the truth, leaving the familiar, asking the question, setting the boundary. These actions may never appear dramatic from the outside, but inside, they represent a refusal to let fear design the future. Each courageous act leaves evidence. You begin to remember, I was afraid, and I still acted. This is more useful than telling yourself that fear should never appear. Confidence grows from a history of acting with fear present. You do not become brave and then take the step. Very often, you take the step, and bravery begins forming behind you. The quietly confident person does not wait to feel completely ready. They understand that readiness is sometimes created through movement. They prepare responsibly, but they do not use preparation as an endless hiding place. At some point, the work must be released. The conversation must begin, and the decision must be made. When the result is disappointing, they do not immediately declare the entire effort meaningless. They examine what worked, what failed, what can be learned, what must change. This practical response protects them from both arrogance and despair. Success does not prove they can never fail. Failure does not prove they can never succeed. Their identity remains larger than one outcome. This is why quiet confidence creates resilience. If your identity depends on always winning, one loss can destroy you. If it depends on always appearing intelligent, one mistake can humiliate you. If it depends on universal admiration, one critic can control your day. But when your identity is grounded in values, you can lose and still remain yourself. You can be wrong and still remain worthy of growth. You can be rejected and still continue. Rejection hurts, but it is not always a judgment of your value. Sometimes it is incompatibility. Sometimes it is timing. Sometimes another person cannot recognize what you offer. Sometimes you were simply not prepared enough. Quiet confidence can consider all these possibilities without choosing the most destructive interpretation. The insecure mind says, "They rejected me, so I am nothing." The arrogant mind says, "They rejected me, so they are fools." Quiet confidence says, "This hurts. I will examine what is useful, accept what I cannot control, and continue." This response is difficult to fake because it requires emotional endurance. It requires sitting with disappointment without immediately escaping into blame or self-destruction. But every time you endure a difficult feeling without betraying your values, your inner foundation becomes stronger. Eventually, you begin to understand that confidence is not a feeling you maintain every hour. Some days, you will doubt yourself. Some rooms will make you nervous. Some challenges will expose limits you did not know you had. Quiet confidence does not demand constant certainty. It creates a stable relationship with uncertainty. You can feel unsure and still act carefully. You can feel nervous and still speak. You can feel disappointed and still remain respectful. You can feel lost and still take the next honest step. This is far more durable than emotional confidence because feelings change. Character can continue when feelings are unstable. So, how do you build the quiet confidence nobody can fake? You begin by keeping smaller promises, not dramatic promises designed to transform your entire life overnight. Small agreements with yourself that can be repeated. Wake when you said you would. Finish one necessary task. Speak one honest sentence. Put the distraction away for a limited period. Each kept promise is a vote for a new identity. Then, practice doing useful things without announcing them. Let some progress remain private. Notice the urge to seek immediate validation and allow the work itself to become the reward. This does not mean never sharing success. It means becoming capable of success that still feels meaningful before anyone reacts. Practice listening. Enter conversations without needing to prove that you are the most informed person present. Ask questions. Let another person teach you. Notice that learning does not reduce your dignity. It increases your capacity. Practice admitting mistakes quickly. Remove the unnecessary defense. Say what happened. Repair what can be repaired. And change the behavior. You will discover that honest accountability creates more respect than a perfect image. Practice saying no without hostility. Use a calm sentence. Do not create 10 weak reasons when one honest answer is enough. Let the other person have their response. Their disappointment may be uncomfortable, but it does not automatically become your command. Practice being unseen. Spend time creating, learning, or resting without turning the experience into a public signal. Notice who you are when nobody is watching. Strengthen that person. Most importantly, practice choosing self-respect over immediate approval. This choice will appear again and again. In conversations, in relationships, in your work, in moments of temptation. Approval often offers quick comfort. Self-respect requires patience, but approval can disappear with the next opinion. Self-respect becomes part of your foundation. One day, people may notice that you have changed. They may not know exactly why. You speak with less desperation. You no longer explain every choice. You do not compete with every person. You are willing to be wrong, but you are no longer easily controlled. You can receive praise without becoming intoxicated and criticism without becoming destroyed. You have not become emotionless. You have become less dependent. You have not become superior. You have become more honest. You have not stopped caring what anyone thinks. You have stopped allowing every opinion to decide what you think of yourself. This is the quiet confidence nobody can fake. It is not a facial expression, a tone of voice, or a collection of impressive statements. It is the result of private alignment. It is what happens when your words and actions begin supporting each other. It is what happens when you stop building an image and start building evidence. You do not have to tell people you are disciplined. Your consistency will reveal it. You do not have to announce that you are strong. Your response under pressure will reveal it. You do not have to demand respect. The way you respect yourself will teach others what access to you requires. Some people still may not respect you. Quiet confidence accepts this too. It understands that good character does not guarantee universal approval. Some people will dislike your boundaries, misinterpret your silence, or feel threatened by your growth. You cannot control that. Your work is to remain honest without becoming bitter. Do not turn confidence into another performance. You do not need to walk into every room trying to appear mysterious, detached, or powerful. That is still attention-seeking in another form. Real quiet confidence is not carefully acting as if you do not care. It is caring about the right things. Care about your conduct. Care about your commitments. Care about the quality of your work. Care about the people who have earned your trust. Care about becoming wiser, steadier, and more courageous. Then release the need to display these qualities before they have been built. The loudest person in the room may be remembered for a moment. The most grounded person may influence the room without needing to own it. Their presence gives others permission to slow down. Their honesty makes conversation safer. Their stability creates trust. This influence cannot be demanded. It is earned through consistency. You may spend years building it. There will be no single moment when you become completely confident. Instead, you will notice smaller changes. An insult that once controlled your entire day now passes in an hour. A room that once terrified you becomes a place where you can remain curious. A rejection still hurts, but it no longer ends your movement. You say no and survive the guilt. You admit a mistake and survive the embarrassment. These are the victories that matter. They are quiet, but they are real. Eventually, the question changes. You stop asking, "How can I make them see my value?" You begin asking, "How can I live in a way that I respect?" This question returns your power. It does not make life easy, but it makes life yours. You will still be misunderstood. You will still face moments of doubt. You will still meet people who judge your calm as weakness because they only recognize power when it creates noise. Let them misunderstand for a while. A mountain does not explain its strength to the wind. An ocean does not prove its depth to every person standing at the shore. A tree does not interrupt its growth to convince the forest that its roots are real. Continue. Keep your promises. Correct your mistakes. Remain teachable. Protect your attention. Walk away from the battles that do not deserve your life. And when you enter a room, do not ask whether you are the most important person there. Ask whether you can remain honest, present, and grounded. That is enough. The person with quiet confidence does not need to conquer every room. They have learned to govern themselves. They do not need to control every opinion. They have learned to control their response. They do not need to win every comparison. They have learned to remain committed to their own direction. This is where true freedom begins. Not when everyone praises you, not when nobody criticizes you, not when fear disappears. Freedom begins when praise, criticism, and fear can all be present, and you can still choose your next action with dignity. That choice is your power. Protect it in silence. Strengthen it through practice. Let it become so deeply rooted that you no longer need to announce it. Because real confidence does not enter the world saying, "Look at me." It enters quietly, does what must be done, and leaves behind something no performance can imitate. Trust, stability, character, the kind of strength nobody needs to hear about, because everyone can feel it.